All commentary is alleged and based on my opinion only. This content is created strictly for entertainment purposes. Today we are talking about Melody She going live on TikTok with all four of her kids, and what was presented as a lighthearted, fun family moment quickly turned into something a little deeper, a little more revealing, and honestly a lot more interesting than some people may have expected. This was not a staged television scene. This was not edited reality TV. This was real-time interaction, unfiltered conversation, and raw parenting moments happening live in front of thousands of viewers. And those are always the moments that tell you the most. This live was described as just a short snippet, something casual, Melody hanging out with the kids, laughing, joking, and letting the audience peek into their everyday family dynamic. But as the live went on, it became clear that this wasn't just about fun and games. It was also about parenting philosophy, communication, boundaries, emotional intelligence, and how Melody navigates raising four very different personalities under one roof. At the same time, Melody was doing what she always does, and that is mixing business with life. She was promoting her products, engaging with supporters, encouraging people to follow different pages, and keeping her brand visible even during family time. Some people criticize that. Others admire it. But one thing you cannot deny is that Melody is consistent. She understands her platform, she understands marketing, and she knows how to turn everyday moments into brand visibility without fully disrupting the experience. What stood out immediately was how much the kids have grown. If you have been watching Melody for years, whether through television or social media, it almost feels like time skipped forward. These are kids with opinions, personalities, confidence, and voices of their own, and that can be a shock for viewers who remember them being much younger. You could hear Melody herself reflecting on that in real time. She mentioned how it feels like just yesterday they were small, being called nicknames like Boss Baby and Sugar Mama, and now suddenly Boss Baby doesn't feel like a baby anymore. Sugar Mama has opinions and boundaries. Tank looks like he's growing into a strong young man, and Mariah is carrying herself with elegance and maturity beyond her years. The way Melody talks about her children is very intentional. She sees them as individuals, not extensions of herself. She notices their differences. She acknowledges how their looks change over time, how sometimes they resemble her more, sometimes their other parent more, and how those features fluctuate as they grow. That's something a lot of parents experience, but not everyone articulates it out loud. In Melody's opinion, at this stage, many of the kids resemble her strongly, especially Mariah, Tank, and Sugar Mama. Boss, on the other hand, seems to favor her other parent more right now. And Melody says that without judgment, without competition, and without insecurity. It's just an observation. And that matters because not every parent is comfortable acknowledging those things publicly. Mariah, in particular, stood out during the live. Melody described her as eloquent, elegant, and incredibly beautiful. But beyond physical appearance, what really came through was Mariah's confidence and communication skills. She spoke clearly, she expressed herself openly, and she participated in conversations without fear or hesitation. That doesn't happen by accident. That is learned behavior. Tank also showed a strong personality. He was joking about going to the gym, trying to head out in shorts, and Melody immediately stepped in with a parental check. Not harshly, not aggressively, but firmly. That moment alone showed Melody's balance between being relaxed and still being fully present as a parent. Sugar Mama, on the other hand, was clearly in her own mood. Melody acknowledged that too. She didn't try to force her into being bubbly or performative. She allowed her to exist as she was in that moment. And that's another thing that stood out. Melody doesn't require her kids to perform happiness for the camera. She allows them to be themselves, even if that means having an attitude on a live stream. Then there was Boss, no longer Boss Baby, who sparked one of the most talked about moments of the live. A conversation started that many parents watching probably did not expect to hear in real time. It began innocently with talk of school, classmates, and sports, but it quickly shifted into a discussion about boys, gym class, and what kids notice at that age. When Boss mentioned noticing a boy's abs during gym class, Melody's reaction was immediate. Not panicked, not aggressive, but alert. You could see her switch into what many parents call mama mode. She stopped the conversation, asked clarifying questions, and made sure she fully understood what her child was saying. This moment is where opinions began to divide. Some viewers felt uncomfortable. Some thought the conversation was too much for a live stream. Others appreciated the honesty and openness between mother and child. But regardless of where you stand, what cannot be ignored is how Melody handled it. She didn't shame her child. She didn't yell. She didn't shut her down. She asked questions. She listened. She corrected language when needed. She explained boundaries, and she reinforced what is appropriate and what is not, all while remaining calm. Boss explained that during gym class, when boys wipe sweat from their faces, they sometimes lift their shirts, revealing their stomachs. That's how she noticed the abs. Melody immediately questioned why shirts were being lifted at all and whether undershirts were being worn. Again, this is real parenting. This is what happens when kids are exposed to environments outside the home. What's important here is that Boss felt comfortable enough to say it. She didn't hide it. She didn't whisper it. She didn't seem afraid of getting in trouble. And that speaks volumes about the communication dynamic in that household. Melody made it clear that while she appreciates honesty, she also believes in guidance. She emphasized that kids should not be focusing on other people's bodies, especially at such a young age, but she also acknowledged curiosity exists, and instead of pretending it doesn't, she chose to address it head-on. The conversation then shifted toward emotional intelligence, and this is where Melody's parenting philosophy became very clear. Boss talked about a boy named Troy, describing him as kind, sweet, respectful, athletic, and calm. She mentioned that she had never seen him get mad. Melody paused on that statement. She didn't rush past it. She didn't dismiss it. She highlighted it. Because to Melody, that detail mattered more than anything else. Not looks, not popularity, not athletic ability, emotional control. Melody explained that someone who doesn't get angry easily, who stays out of other people's business, and who controls their emotions is demonstrating a level of emotional intelligence that is rare, especially at such a young age. She made it clear that this is the type of quality she wants her children to value as they grow older. Again, this wasn't a lecture. She spoke to her child, not at her child, and that distinction is important. Melody also shared a personal story about Mariah and how she discovered that Mariah had a boyfriend in the past, not through snooping, not through rumors, but through conversation. Melody asked questions, she opened the door, and Mariah walked through it willingly. Mariah shared details about the relationship, why it ended, what was said, and how she felt. Melody listened. She didn't overreact, she didn't punish, she processed. And when she later asked again and Mariah said she didn't have a boyfriend and that Melody would be the first to know if she did, you could hear the pride in Melody's voice. That moment revealed something crucial. Melody isn't trying to control her children through fear, and that's a very different approach from what many people are used to seeing. She even acknowledged that internally she felt excited and relieved, but she didn't project that on Mariah. She allowed her child to feel safe, not pressured. Throughout the live, Melody consistently reinforced values like kindness, respect, emotional awareness, and communication. She corrected language gently, she clarified misunderstandings, she protected boundaries, and when a line was crossed, she addressed it immediately. At one point, when someone jokingly referred to a crush as your man, Melody shut that down instantly. She made it clear that a child is not a man and a crush is not a relationship. That may seem small, but language shapes perception, and Melody is clearly aware of that. She also made it clear that dating, real dating, comes later, not in 4th grade, not at 10 years old, and she framed it in a way that wasn't shaming but educational. What also stood out was how engaged the kids were with the live itself. They weren't distracted, they weren't glued to devices, they were present, they responded to comments, they joked with their mom, they listened, and that level of engagement says a lot about the environment they're being raised in. This live also showed Melody's ability to switch roles seamlessly. One moment she was joking and laughing, the next moment she was serious and protective. Then she was back to being playful again. That balance is not easy, especially in front of an audience. Some viewers may argue that certain conversations should not happen on live streams. That is a valid opinion, but it's also important to acknowledge that Melody did not initiate inappropriate topics. She responded to what her children brought to her, and she did so responsibly. In many ways, this live humanized Melody even more. She wasn't performing perfection. She wasn't pretending to have all the answers. She was parenting in real time with all the messiness that comes with it. And for parents watching, this was relatable. Kids say unexpected things. They notice things you wish they wouldn't. They ask questions that catch you off guard. And how you respond in those moments matter. Melody chose to respond with presence, patience, and purpose. As the live wrapped up, the overall tone remained light despite the deeper conversations. There was laughter, there were jokes, there was affection, and there was a clear sense that these kids feel safe with their mother. This wasn't just a fun live, it was a snapshot of real parenting, real growth, and real communication. And whether you agree with every choice or not, it sparked conversation, reflection, and engagement.